Welcome everyone. So, today we would be talking about immunological based technique, that is radio immunoassay. The main learning objective of this lecture is you will be getting to understand the basic principle and procedure of radioimmunoassay, that what is the principle behind it, why we need to use it, what is its importance, how we can perform these experiments, what sort of things we require to carry out this technique, and how we can use this technique in various molecular diagnostic purpose, how we use this technique in different type of diagnosis. So that is the main objective. Starting with the point, first of all, we need to understand immunoassay. What is an immunoassay? Because we are talking it as radio immunoassay. First of all, we need to understand the meaning of immunoassay. As the name suggests, immunoassay, it is made up of two terms, two words, immuno and assay. Where this immuno, it mainly refers to the immune response that our body generally, mount in response to some certain kind of antigen. Whenever, some kind of antigen enter inside our bloodstream, either through oral route or through, through some skin injury, in that case our immune response gets activated. It either produce some sort of antibodies or it produce some sort of different kind of molecules so as to cater that infection. So such kind of immune response that cause the body to generate antibodies, that is here referred to as immuno. Assay means test. Whenever you are using any kind of test to detect such kind of immune response, that whether our body has generated some immune response against that very infection or not. So in nutshell, you can say an immunoassay, it is basically a test that will use antibody and antigen complex, and this test will be using this immunocomplex, that antigen and antibody complex, when they are brought together so as to go for the diagnosis of a particular kind of disease. We know that an antigen and antibody complex is also known as immune complex. So by using these immunoassay based tests, we can go for the detection of different immune complexes. That means whether if an antibody is generated that has made bond with antigen or not, or whether it has combined with that antigen or not so as to neutralize it. So all these things are dependent upon this immunoassay. Now, there are few important terms that we need to understand, that are what is an antibody, what is an antigen, what is an analyte. Antibody, first of all, it is a protein molecule that is produced by our body in response to some invading organism or invading entity or in foreign molecule. It can be, you can say these molecules are normally produced by the, a specific part of the immune response. For example, in case of humoral immunity, B cells are the main key players who play a very important role in secreting antibodies against specific antigens. So these are the antibodies that normally our body produce so as to protect themselves from any kind of invading molecule. Now the point is, what is an antigen? An antigen, it is basically a foreign substance that a body is trying to fight off, so that it is not the part of our body. That thing is trying to invade the body, and in response to that, our body is, they have activated the defense mechanism so that they can fight against them and they mount an immune response. And antigen can be anything. It can be a microorganism. It can either be whole cell microorganism, their small parts, their fragments, their toxins, or sometimes certain kind of drugs or molecules that we normally take in our routine life. They can also act as antigen that can bind with a specific type of antibody. Next important point is, what is an immunogen? Immunogen, as a name suggests, immunogen, that means it is a such kind of substance that basically help in eliciting our immune response, that basically help in triggering the immune response against a particular antigen. For example, drug or protein conjugate are being molecule. So such kind of things are known as antigen, antibody, and immunogen. Next important point is analyte, because we are talking about immunoassay. So it is a test. In test, what we would be analyzing, concentration of which compound we would be analyzing. That thing is known as analyte. Analyte, that means it is a substance, or it can be anything that we normally measure by carrying out a particular laboratory test. This analyte, it can be either antigen or antibody. Why we call it as antigen or antibody? Because we are talking about those analytes which we use in immunoassay. And in case of immunoassay, the main two things are very important if you want to measure, that is an antigen or antibody. So immunoassay, any kind of immunoassay, they can basically utilize either one or more than one selected antibody so as to detect the analyte of interest. Either it can be antigen or it can be any drug molecule also. So these analytes are normally being measured. They are naturally, they can be either naturally present in the body. For example, sometimes we go for the thyroid hormone testing, T3, T4, TSH. So those things are analyte. In that case, we go for the detection. We can use this technique also for that, immunoassay based techniques also for the detection of that those hormones. Sometimes doctors say it as your thyroid hormones levels are high. How they got to know that? Because they normally perform an immunoassay. They measure the concentration. Next is sometimes the body produces some kind of analytes, but they are not typically present. For example, any kind of tumor antigen. For example, the if some cells are if some our body cells are growing, or they are proliferating in a very uncontrolled fashion. In that case, also some sort of antigens are being expressed onto the surface of those cancerous cells. So those cancer antigens can be used as a detection tool also. However, there are many molecules that normally are not present inside our body. The upper 2 points that I have discussed, those are those molecules that are naturally present in the body. For example, thyroid hormone, that is a part of our body. For example, cancer antigen. If our immune system is not working properly, or if our cells, they are growing uncontrollably, in that case, cancer antigens would be there. But there are certain molecules that are normally not present in our body. For example, any kind of drug. So that thing can also be measured. Now, starting with the main topic of the today, that is radio immunoassay. However, this is the most sophisticated and elegant technique in the analytical chemistry. However, we also use this thing in the immunological based testing and diagnosis also. We normally perform this technique if a particular analyte or a particular substance that we want to analyze, if that thing is present in a very low quantity, or their concentration is very small. If the concentration is very small, that thing can't be detected by a normal routine instrumentation. For example, our gravimetric method or calorimetric method. If those instruments are not able to detect that concentration, in that case we use RIA, that is radio immunoassay. Here the main point is immunoassay, we have understood this thing. Radio means there would be a radioactive labeled. That means there would be some radioactive molecule that would be used in carrying out this very reaction. However, this technique has found an immense application if you want to go for the detection of any kind of analyte that is present in a trace amount in our blood. You can say in response to some kind of blood based detection, that whether that this very person has consumed excess of this drug or not. In that case, we go for this technique because this is the most elegant one, most sophisticated one, most sensitive one. You can say even nanogram or picogram quantities can be detected by this method. Now, a brief history about it, that who discovered it and how it basically revolutionized the complete diagnostic areas. This technique was developed in the year of 1959 by two scientists, that is Rosalind Yellow and Solomon Burson, for the measurement of insulin in plasma. They basically went for the discovery of this very technique for the detection of a hormone, insulin, in the blood plasma. And this was the first time that a hormone level in the body was detected by an in vitro assay, that how much level is present in our blood. And for this very work, for developing this very technique, these two scientists, they were even awarded Nobel Prize in the year 1977. Now, shifting to the main point, what is the principle of it? The main principle is, you can, as I told you, the analyte can be anything. It can be either antigen or antibody. So for the principal part, for how we can, basically use this experiment, because if you want to use this thing in diagnosis purpose, in that case, we can either go for the detection of antigenic molecule, or you can say any kind of infectious molecule or any kind of drug. That would be an antigen. You can either detect that antigen, or you can either go for the antibody detection. So first of all, starting with it, you can what we can do this case, different kind of test tubes are being used in which the amount of specific antibody is kept constant. However, the amount of antigen added, whether it is known or unknown, that would be the variable parameter. Suppose you can say you have taken the serum from a patient, you can use the different concentration of that serum, or you can say you can use different volumes of the serum, because the antigen concentration will vary depending upon the volume also. So the added antigen will be either distributed in the form of bound form or free fraction. That means if the particular antibody we have already added, either the antigen will be binding to that very antibody, or it would remain in the free form. That means antigen can be present in that very setting either in the bound form, that is B, or in the free form. However, this complete distribution, that whether they will remain in the bound form or free form, we normally determine this thing by an association constant of the antibody, that is known as Ka. This is the general reaction of it. That is, this is an antibody plus antigen, it will form a complex. If you want to know, then this would be the association constant, concentration of antibody and antigen divided by concentration of antibody and concentration of antigen. So depending upon the free antigen present, we can go for the detection. However, this RIA method, this complete test procedure or principle is based upon the competitive binding. Competitive binding of what? A radio labeled antigen. That, because the name of the technique is radio immunoassay, that means we would be labeling the antigen with a radioactive molecule. There on one side there would be a radio labeled antigen, on other side there would be an unlabeled antigen, and both of these antigens would be competing for the high affinity antibody. So there would be a competitive binding of radio labeled antigen and unlabeled antigen with the high affinity antibody. Now, when this labeled antigen is mixed with an antibody at a concentration, that will saturate the antibody sites. That it will form a bonding antigen binding sites of the body in that antibody. In that case, the concentration of the unlabeled antigen, that will increase, because the labeled antigens are present in the bound form. So sometimes what happens when we add unlabeled antigen at that very time, the unlabeled antigen will compete for the antigen binding site with the labeled antigen. Or you can say it will displace the already bounded labeled antigen, and it will fix onto the antibody. So depending upon the free concentration of these antigens, we can go for the detection that how much antigen is present. Because the decrease in the amount of radio labeled antigen that is bound specific to the antibody in the presence of test sample is the main principle behind it, that we use to determine the amount of antigen. Because in the standard condition, the labeled antigen bound to the antibody decreases as we go on adding more of unlabeled antigen. Now see this diagram also. Herein, this eye-shaped structure, it is basically showing an antibody. The green color one is unlabeled antigen and blue one is the labeled antigen. So what is happening in this condition? In the first reaction, in the first step, what we are doing, we are adding this labeled antigen and antibody. They are both present in the free form. But once they are present in a single test tube, they will bind together. As you can see, the antigen Radio labeled antigen, it has binded to both of the sides of an antibody. Now this is complete saturated. These antibodies are saturated with the labeled antigen. Now when we will be adding, suppose whenever you are basically performing this experiment in the presence of an unlabeled antigen also. Now in the second set of view, what we have done, we have added labeled antigen. This one is labeled and this one is unlabeled, green one. And we have added an antibody. Now both of these antigens have the same binding sites. That means they can bind to this antibody at these binding sites. So there would be a competition. There would be a competition, as you can see here. At one slot the labeled antigen is there, and at another slot unlabeled antigen is there. So that means, so as to bind to the antibody, there would be a competition, or there may be a possibility that if some unlabeled antigen is bound to labeled antigen, will displace it, or unlabeled antigen will displace the radioactively labeled antigen. So that is the principle, that how it operates, that how the binding is being happening, how we can go for detection, that what amount of labeled antigen is present or unlabeled antigen is present. Now, if you want to go for performing this assay, in that case, what sort of things you require? You require a tracer. Tracer means labeled ligand, or you can say a labeled antigen. Next is you need a binder. Binder means an antibody which is specific to the that very specific antigen. You need a separation system. Separation system, because as I told you, the antigen added would be either present in the bound form or in the free form. So we need a separator system so that we can separate the bound form. You can say we can separate the antigen antibody complex that has been formed and the free part, free antigen molecules. Next is we need a standard. Why we need a standard? We need a standard so as to check that whether what experiment we have performed, whether it is correct or not. So that is a standard. We need a free human antiserum also so as to have the antibody against that. So the first thing, that is the tracer. That means the labeled with which molecule you would be labeling your antigen. So we need specific type of radioisotopes, in which they are mainly are of two types, that is beta emitters and gamma emitters. In beta emitters there are two types, that is tritium and C14. Tritium is H3, as you can see here. This is tritium and this is C14. Gamma emitters, in that case, iodine 125 is the main gamma emitter. So starting with its part, first is tritium. Tritium, it is a weak beta ray emitter because it will emit beta rays. However, its energy is way lower than normal temperature than C14. However, it is having a long physical life. That means it can remain inactive for 12.3 years. However, its biological life is around 10 to 12 days. And normally, if you want to produce this tritium, that case you can bombard the hydrogen isotope with a neutron so that we can get the tritium molecules. We normally use this thing for the labeling whenever we go for the detection of certain kind of drugs which are proteinaceous in nature. For that thing we use this tritium. Next is C14, that is carbon 14. It is again a weak beta ray emitter, but its physical life is very long. For example, 5.7 to 10 raised to power 3 years. The biological life in the bound form, it is 12 days, and in the unbound form, it is around 40 days. And it is commercially available as in the form of a complex known as barium carbonate. Next is iodine 125. It is a gamma ray emitter. However, it is a very low, it produces a very low gamma emission. But the point is, it is basically imposing a very high specific activity, and its physical life is very less. Now, there comes the difference. In case of beta ray emitters that we discussed, that is tritium as well as carbon 14, the physical life was very long. It was around 12.13 years in case of tritium, and in case of C14, it was 5.3 into 10 raised to power 3 years. However, in case of iodine 125, there is only 60 days. So keep this thing in mind that physical life is less. Next point, what kind of you can say how you can go for the production of these molecules also. For example, you can either use positron or gamma isotope. Positron means the beta emitters. They are normally restricted for in vitro experiments. If you want to perform certain kinds of in vivo experiments, or you want to go for in vivo imaging, in that case we use gamma emitters. For example, iodine 125. These are the positrons that commonly used isotopes that we use in the RIA as tracer molecule. C11, N13, 15O, 18F. In case of gamma, we use indium, samarium, selenium, iodine 120. But in most of the experiment of the RIA, the most favored tracer molecule is iodine 125. Why? Because it is having high specific activity. The isotope abundance is 100%, and it can reduce the counting time, and it is quite economic also because its half life is less. That means if it is released in the material also, after 60 days it would be degraded, hence shelf life of labeled antigen won't be long, so it will not cause any kind of hazards. Second point, iodine. It is a natural constituent of our hormones that are present inside our body. For example, thyroid hormone, thyroxine, triiodothyronine. So that kind of hazards that can we can have by using these iodine 125, that is quite less as compared to other molecules. We can easily introduce these molecules into the protein molecules or steroid. That means the labeling by this very iodine 125, it is quite easy. And the method that how we can go for the gamma emission, in that case, very simple experiments, very simple equipments are being used for the counting of these radioactivity also. However, there is one disadvantage. Sometimes after labeling, the ligand may damage during the storage. Health hazard sometimes comes if if you can say if its physical life is still having there. Now, tritium is more efficient whenever you want to go for the detection of a very small amount of peptide or very small size of peptide. In that case, the main advantage is long shelf life, high affinity. There is no derivative preparation we require. Minimal health hazards are being exposed. Disadvantages, because for the counting purpose we require scintillation counters. We can either go for liquid scintillation or solid scintillation. That is very costly, and the specific activity is less. Next is we need a binder. Binder means antibody. Normally, how we can prepare a particular binder against a specific antigen? It is normally prepared by injecting the antigen together with a adjuvant molecule into a suitable animal. So, for example, you can use rabbit, you can use pig, you can use goat. So, what happens is, for example, you have inserted a molecule like thyroid hormones, steroids, or drugs that are not immunogenic. So when you conjugate those things onto the surface of carrier proteins and polymers so that they can become immunogenic. After making them immunogenic, we inject those things in the animals so that animals will be taking that thing as a foreign molecule and it will produce antibody. Next is we need a separation system to separate the bound form and free form. Basically, we require this thing so that the bound fraction does not precipitate spontaneously at the low concentration. We can use variety of procedures for it. For example, physical method. You can go for the separation of bound and free form molecules by using filtration, chromatography, electrophoresis, charcoal dextron adsorption. You can use gel filtration experiments. You can go for ion exchange chromatography. There are many more methods. However, you can go for chemical methods also. For example, you can use certain kinds of solvent molecules. For example, ethanol, dioxane, polyethylene glycol. You can use certain salts that are sodium, zinc, or ammonium sulfate based salts you can use. You can either use solid phase system also, onto which you can separate the bound form in you can collect the bound form in as a one fraction, and free form in the another fraction also. Next is you need a standard, that is a ligand or analyte that is highly present in the pure form. In that case, if you want to go for the detection of particular kind of drug inside the blood, in that case, that drug, that protein or hormone, that must be present in the pure form, so that we can dilute it and we can prepare a standard curve so as to calculate the concentration of that very drug in the blood also. Next is we need a ligand-free human serum. Normally, we can prepare this serum by treating the human serum with charcoal. However, we can either go for collection of serum from many persons who are willing to contribute, and from that you can have the production of ligand or hormone that have inhibited by that treatment with an unappropriate drug also. Now, what is the procedure? Now, first thing is you need to take the antigen, a known quantity of antigen, and you have to label that thing with a radioisotope. That means first thing is a known quantity of antigen is made radioactive. Then this radioactive agent is mixed with a known amount of antibody and for that antigen. And as a result, whenever you are adding the specific antigen and antibody, they will bind. Once they have bind, then a sample of serum from a patient. So in the patient serum, if that very antigen is present, but it is not labeled, containing an unknown quantity of that same antigen is added. So it will compete with the radio labeled antigen. So what this will cause, this cause the unlabeled or cold antigen, you can say, from the serum to compete with the radio labeled antigen for the antibody binding sites. So if the patient serum is having very high concentration of antigen, or you can say if the patient is very infectious or the antigen load is way higher, in that case the labeled antigens would be displaced and an unlabeled antigen will capture the antibody binding site. So by displacing this radio labeled antigen, the radio labeled variant and the ratio of antibody bound radio labeled antigen to the free radio labeled antigen, it would be reduced. So the bound antigens can be separated from the unbound one. However, the radioactivity of the free antigen that is now present in the supernatant, that will be further measured. If depending upon the concentration of that free antigen, we can detect that whether that antigen is present or not, or what is the concentration. This is the complete chart of it. This is the radioactive antigen. This is the first antibody. In the previous, whenever this technique was devised, in that case, we got to use some second antibody also. But in the current scenario, we don't use it. What happened was, this is the radioactive antigen. This is the first antibody. Onto this radioactive antigen is already bound. As you can see, the sites are saturated. Now we have added an unlabeled antigen. You can say serum of the patient. Now, what would be there? There would be a competition. At you now you can see at few sites the unlabeled antigens are added. At few sites the radioactive active labeled antigens are added. At that time, we used to precipitate these antigen antibody complex with an anti-immunoglobulin, or you can say a second antibody, so that this second antibody, this green color antibody, this is a second antibody due to which the precipitation was happening. Now, a radio labeled antigen, this is the example case study, you can say, in case of certain kind of disease. A radio labeled antigen is allowed to bind to high affinity antibody. This is a radio labeled antibody, radio labeled. Thus, when the patient serum is added, unlabeled antigen in it start binding to the antibody, displacing the label. This is the kappa chain ADA. This is the lambda chain ADA. Patient serum with ADA. Now we have added this very antibody. Now anti-lambda light chain antibody is added. It will compete for it. After forming the complex with the secondary antibody, it will precipitate down. If it will precipitate down, the rest of the antibodies, it would be this radioactivity would be measured by gamma counter. What are the advantages? It is a very sensitive technique. You can measure the concentration of antigen without the need to go for any kind of bioassay. You can either measure, 10 to the power minus 12 gram of material per milliliter of blood. It is very specific in nature because it is dependent upon specific antigen and antibody reactions. However, it is an indirect method of analysis also, because depending upon the free antigen, we are basically measuring the concentration. It is a saturation analysis also, because we go for saturating the antibody sites for the with the help of a particular antigen. There are few disadvantages. Prolonged reaction time, as a consequent, highly diluted reagent is used, because the reaction time is very long. Radioactive iodine reagent that we use, it is not very cheap. We need to use some specific sort of time span so as to produce that thing. Sometimes possible health results can be possible because we are using radioisotopes. There are some reagents that we need to add it very in a very precise manner. There is limited assay range. There is lack of direct relationship between analyte concentration and signal response. For example, if you're going for standard curve, there is difficulty of automation also, and counting time is also very lengthy. That means the radioactivity measurement is the very tedious task. However, we can use this technique in a various fields. For example, if you want to go for narcotics detection, if you want to go that whether the blood has contained specific kind of drug or not. For the blood bank screening, for the screening of very highly infectious molecules, for example, hepatitis, we can go for the early cancer detection, because we can go for the cancer antigen detection also. We can go for the measurement of growth hormone levels. We can track the leukemia virus. We can diagnose and treat the various peptic ulcers. We can either research with many kind of brain chemicals, that, for example, neurotransmitters. We can also work on that. However, these are the few recent application, that is refinement of zolcatabine pharmacokinetics with the help of RIA. Estradiol measurement in the translational studies of breast cancer also, in which the plasma estrogen measurement with the use of this technique has been instrumental in the development of many aromatase inhibitors for the endocrine therapy of very postmenopausal breast cancer also. However, it has played a very significant role in the prostate cancer also, because we can go for the specific cancer causing disease conditions also. We can go for the evaluation of enzyme assays and radioimmunoassays for the measurement of concentration of oxytocin levels also in the plasma. So that is also very important. These are the few MCQs that are uploaded on to the LMS. Thank you so much.